is the United States suddenly alone in one of the world's most dangerous crises? Because even its closest allies don't want to enter the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway carries 1/5 of the world's oil, and right now it's effectively blocked. Oil prices are rising, global markets are under pressure, and Washington is asking for help. US President Donald Trump has demanded that allies send naval forces to reopen the strait, but instead of support, he got hesitation. Europe's response: caution, delay, resistance. Any mission requires unanimous approval, and countries like Germany are already pushing back. Asia's response: even weaker. Japan and South Korea, two of America's most important partners, have refused to commit ships, and that's despite the fact that Japan gets 95% of its oil from the Middle East. So what's stopping them? Risk. Reopening Hormuz is not just a naval operation. It means sailing directly into a war zone. Iran still has the capability to target ships, launch attacks, and disrupt any escort mission. That makes every vessel, military or civilian, a potential target. And even if allies join, it may not change anything. European officials say additional ships would take weeks to arrive and would add little beyond the massive US naval presence already there. As Germany's defense minister bluntly put it, what can a few European ships achieve that the US Navy cannot? But this isn't just military, it's political. After years of tensions over tariffs, NATO funding, and foreign policy, allies are no longer eager to follow Washington into another conflict. As one analyst warned, the US is now discovering how much goodwill it has burned. Even Britain, America's closest ally, is stepping back. Prime Minister Keir Starmer made it clear the UK will not be dragged into a wider war. Other countries are even more direct. Spain warned against any escalation. Several European governments said they have no plans to send ships at all. And in Asia, the hesitation is even more strategic. Japan and South Korea are wary of supporting a war that has no clear endgame, is not backed by the United Nations, and could pull them into a much larger conflict. Even Australia and New Zealand have stayed non-committal. And then there is China, a major energy power, a key player in the region, but completely unwilling to join a US-led operation, because Beijing has close ties with Iran and no reason to support Washington's war. And that reveals the real problem. This isn't just a military crisis, it's a credibility crisis. The United States is asking for a coalition, but no one wants to sign up, because the risks are high, the strategy is unclear, and the outcome is uncertain. So now the question is no longer, can the US reopen the Strait of Hormuz? The real question is, will it have to do it alone? What happens when a 33-kilometer-wide waterway controls nearly 1/5 of the world's oil supply? You don't need an official blockade, you just need fear. That's the Strait of Hormuz. Why it matters. With Iran to the north and the UAE and Oman to the south, the strait links the Persian Gulf to the Indian Ocean. It is about 161 kilometers long and 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. Shipping lanes in each direction are just 2 miles wide. Through this corridor flows 16.7 to 20 million barrels of crude and condensate per day. 2025. About 20% of global oil consumption, roughly a quarter to 30% of the world's seaborne oil trade, large volumes of LNG and refined fuels, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE, and Iran ship oil through Hormuz. Most cargoes go to Asia, China, India, Japan, and South Korea, along with European buyers. Gulf refineries also export diesel, naphtha, and other petroleum products globally via this route. Most suppliers have no alternative sea outlet. What happens if it's disrupted? A full closure for more than a few days is a nightmare for energy markets. If flows aren't restored quickly, oil prices could exceed $100 a barrel. Wood Mackenzie, shipping and insurance costs surge, global inflation rises. Brent crude averaged $67 year-to-date as of March 2nd, briefly topping $80 that day. There are buffers. The US and China hold strategic reserves. Saudi Arabia increased loadings before the attacks. OPEC Plus agreed to modest output hikes. But extra supply is useless if it can't pass through Hormuz. Who depends on it most? Saudi Arabia exports the largest volumes through the strait. It can divert up to 5 million barrels per day via the 746-mile east-west pipeline to the Red Sea. The UAE can bypass part of the route using the 1.5 million barrels per day Habshan-Fujairah pipeline. Iraq relies heavily on sea exports from Basra. Its northern pipeline to Turkey cannot replace southern volumes. Kuwait, Qatar, and Bahrain have no alternative route. Iran also depends on Hormuz to export oil, about 3% of global output. More Iranian crude passed through the strait in 2025 than at any time since 2018. Disruption risks angering China, the largest buyer of Iranian oil. How have the US and allies responded before? During the 1980-88 Iran-Iraq War, attacks on tankers escalated into the tanker war. The US Navy escorted Kuwaiti vessels through the Gulf. In 2019, the US, UK, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain formed the International Maritime Security Construct after vessel attacks blamed on Iran. Since late 2023, attention has shifted toward protecting shipping in the Red Sea from Houthi attacks near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. One narrow passage, 2-mile shipping lanes, a quarter of the world's seaborne oil. That is the strategic weight of the Strait of Hormuz. Why